So my uncle owns a donut shop called White House Donuts. It's near Indianapolis. I'll have to add it in the city it's in. But if you're ever around that area, go stop in, give it a try. Tell him Charlie says hi.
Second Kitchen Sounds.
What up, Spice Droppers? This is Charlie coming at you from Ferndale, Michigan. Today we are making apple cider drop donuts. Ooh, baby. Now we are going to do this from scratch, and by from scratch I mean we're making our own apple cider too. You don't have to do that. You can go buy cider and reduce it down. So, let's get cooking. First thing we do, we take 6 apples. I'm using Macintosh today just because I know that they are used in apple cider a lot. We're just going to cut these up into big chunks because we're putting it through the food processor anyway. And you don't really have to worry about the seeds in there because we're going to be taking the solids out of it anyway. And then while we're doing this, we're just going to add it to the food processor. We want to blend this down into like a thick, pulpy, kind of like applesauce, but a little bit thicker. Like a thick applesauce. Apple puree, exactly what it is. You could also use a sieve or anything to separate the liquid from the solids. I'm just going to use some cheesecloth because that's what I have. And it works with every other fruit or vegetable I've ever done this with. So I got a little less than a cup of the pulp in there. And we're just going to squeeze the juice out. And you want to give it a nice squeeze because we're hoping to get about 1.5 cups out of this. Again, take a little more and keep doing this until it's all gone and you have enough juice. Alright, we have all the juice we need, and that right there is unpasteurized apple cider. So step 2 of this process, we're going to take the apple cider and we are going to reduce it. Again, we got 1.5 cups here roughly. We want to reduce it to about 1/4 cup. So I'm going to put it in a pan here, and I'm using a larger pan so there's more surface area so it reduces faster with the steam coming off and everything. So we got this on low to medium heat. We're going to let this reduce down to 1/4 cup while we are preparing the wet and dry ingredients for the dough. Now because we're baking, we need our handy dandy kitchen scale. So we're going to zero that out. We're going to use 50 grams of brown sugar. To the 50 grams of brown sugar, we're going to add 110 grams of white sugar. Throw this in the mixing bowl, and we're going to use 42 grams of unsalted butter. Always use unsalted, especially when baking. Put that in there, and we will whisk that together until it becomes a kind of a pebbly texture. Alright, so we're at that crumbly consistency we're looking for. And now we're going to add 2 eggs. We're going to add them one at a time. Add 1 egg. Mix that in well until it's completely mixed in. And then we're going to add the second egg. Alright, add the second egg. And we are rocking and a-rolling. Alright, set this aside for a second while we do the dry ingredients. For the dry ingredients, we will need 420 grams of all-purpose flour. Throw that in our mixing bowl. 8 grams of sea salt. 10 grams of baking powder. 3 grams of baking soda. And the baking soda is in there. It will react with the acidity of the apples. If you're not using apple cider in this when you're making donuts, you do not need that baking soda, as far as I know. Now we're going to add some spices. Spice drop. Okay, so in here I ground up about a stick of cinnamon, 3 cloves, and then a little nutmeg. We were looking for about a 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon, 1/8 teaspoon of ground cloves, and 1/2 teaspoon of nutmeg if you're not grinding them yourselves. Spice drop. We're going to mix these well together so that that baking powder and baking soda is all throughout. Obviously we want those flavorful spices everywhere too. So give that a nice whisk. Remember, use a different whisk than your wet ingredients, obviously, because wet and dry are opposites. Okay. The next step is to add the dry to the wet. Before we add any of this though, we are going to take 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract and a little bit extra. 2 things you definitely don't want to overpower this with are if you put way too much vanilla in, or cloves. Those cloves will get spicy on you, and we want them to just mix with the cinnamon and that nutmeg for a sweetness. So we have the reduction down. We need a 1/4 cup of this to put in the wet before we start adding the dry. Just slowly whisk that in. So with the flour, we're gonna do about 1 cup or 2 cups at a time. Whisk it in until it is completely mixed in together, and then we'll get the next couple cups. Do this 3 or 4 times, and you'll have a wonderful looking batter. You could also use a mixer if you have one. I don't. Christmas gift or sponsorship would be great, or if I ever got to cook at Adam's house. All right, so that's looking good. Add a couple more cups. At this point, it is definitely becoming a dough, which means a mixer would come in handy. Donut dough is already a super sticky dough, so you're gonna have to deal with stuff like this. So if you were using store-bought cider, all you would do is put a cup and a 1/4, cup and a half, and reduce it down to what you needed. Same exact process. It was just a little more fun to make my own, I think. Yeah, that's clumpy. All right, I'm gonna add the rest of this in here. I'm actually gonna add a little more of the apple cider in there to give it a little more liquid. Not much. Less than a 1/4 cup. So that is what we want, that sticky, thick dough. Because I was born in the 80s, I can take a taster of this and those raw eggs are not going to kill me. Oh man, is that delicious. Obviously be very careful when you're cooking with this. Oil is dangerous and it's hot because we're getting it to 350 to 375. So it's going to be hotter than boiling water. Water boils at 212 degrees. So I'm going to get this going on a high heat, get the cast iron skillet heated up a little bit, and then we're going to throw in peanut oil. You want enough in there. We're using a lot too, which is why it's a little even more dangerous, and it can splash and burn you a lot. But we're going to fill it enough to the point where the little donut balls are not touching the bottom of the pan. So I have about 32 ounces or 1 quart of oil in here. We're going to use a candy thermometer so that we can watch the temperature closely, because if it gets too hot, that is a problem too. So we'll let this get to 350, and instead of dropping spices, we'll start dropping some donuts. Let's do it. All right, we're at about 325 right now, so we're almost there. I do want to show you though, I'm just taking like a spoonful of the dough at a time, and I did take a plate over here. I've floured it so that they won't stick, and I'm just putting them there, and we're gonna have probably, looks like about 2 batches to do. And it does help too if you keep some flour on your fingers. But yeah, once we get to about 360, I'm gonna start throwing them in, and it will lower the temperature. So we just want to keep it in that 350 to 375 range. Okay, we are at 360, 370. So they do, initially they will go to the bottom. They will come up when they start cooking more. So yeah, we're already dropping down to 350 with those. Oh, this smells amazing. And I might also recommend using long sleeves for this, because this oil will be popping up. All right, these are getting brown on one side, so where are we at on temp? We're right at 375, so we're perfect. All right, so these are looking good on both sides. You see that? Pop these out, put the next batch in. Yeah, you gotta be careful with that oil. It's creeping up over 400 now. Trial and error. I'm actually gonna turn the heat off for a minute. Throw these ones in. But now, I will see all you spice droppers on the other side for the best part of this. Alright, spice droppers. I got the second batch out. I do have one still in there because it was a giant one. I went ahead and put cinnamon and sugar on the first batch because you want to do that when it still has some oil on there. If you look here, I took a big bowl and I put about a cup of sugar and about a quarter cup of cinnamon in there. And then we're just going to take a few at a time and make these even more delicious than they already smell. Just give that a little flip. And then we'll do that with the rest of them. And now we get to try one. Can't wait. Spice droppers, I just gotta say, these look and smell amazing. It smells like fall in here. But spice droppers, cheers. Oh baby. Oh baby. Look at that. Oh, so good. It's pretty crispy on the outside. It's like cake in the middle. Oh, it's great. And stay tuned because in a few weeks, I'm going to be taking these and we're going to make bread pudding with them. I'm going to eat a lot of them first, but happy fall, spice droppers.
That's because we're cooking
Happy fall,
everything in
spice
any
droppers.
season.
Peace
Plenty
and love.
seasoning on the
Love
food
you.
when we're preparing it. And when it's finished, we're all sitting down and sharing it. Yeah.